can't believe I'm here, playing for my life tonight.
I can't believe I'm here, I made it, I'm playing for my life tonight. I'm a shining light. I can't believe I'm here. I can't believe I'm here. Playing for our life tonight. Yeah, I'm playing for our life tonight.
Welcome, friends, to Kingdom Driven Sports. This is your host, Kevin. I'm glad you can join me today for this Week 4 recap, where we'll be going through our Nailed It, Sailed It, Failed It segment and talk about the different games and where I came close to predicting the right score, other games not as close, and then, of course, games where I just completely missed the mark, which will be part of the Failed It segment. Thank you again for joining me, for supporting the channel, and for watching my content. I hope that you enjoy it, and above all, that is a reflection of Jesus, and that you feel his love even through this channel as we talk about sports. This is going to be the Nailed It, Sailed It, Failed It segment, and we're going to start with Nailed It. This is the segment where I talk about games where I got pretty close or pretty spot on outcomes, and we're going to start with a Thursday night game that happened between the Seahawks and the Cardinals. My prediction was 23-21, Seattle winning that game, and the actual score was 23-20, with Seattle being the victor. It was actually a pretty entertaining game. I thought it was just going to be an ugly game prior to the fourth quarter because it looked like Arizona couldn't get anything done. But then they stepped it up in the fourth quarter and scored 14 points. They weren't able to complete the comeback, but they made a valiant effort. It was interesting to see how poorly Kyler Murray has done against the NFC West. I didn't realize that he has such a terrible record within his own division. That was pretty surprising, but it was good to see them try to make that comeback. Now, he did have 2 interceptions, and there are a few plays where it seemed he could have made better decisions. And I know Marvin Harrison Jr. didn't really provide much help, at least the first half. It wasn't until the second half and possibly the fourth quarter, if I remember correctly, where he really started hanging onto the ball and making catches that were helping the Cardinal offense move and score. Of course, we know Marvin Harrison, he's got the potential and the skill set to be an elite receiver in this league. I think injury has played a part in that, but we are hoping that he can live up to I think he was the number 4 pick overall a few years ago. It was nice to see the Cardinals try to fight back, especially after the first 3 quarters seemed like it was just going to be a dud of a game. The final score was 23-20. Credit the Seattle Seahawks, their defense, for holding the Cardinals to 20 points. Their offense doing just enough to keep the victory in their hands. Sam Darnold went 18 for 26, 242 yards and a touchdown. Kenneth Walker had a solid game with 19 carries and 81 yards. Then Jackson Smith and Jigba had 4 receptions for 79 yards. Interesting, the pair of former Ohio State receivers, Jackson Smith and Jigba for Seattle and Marvin Harrison Jr. for the Cardinals, battling it out. It ended up being a really good game. I think Arizona, if they can start playing earlier in the game like they did in the fourth quarter, they'll give themselves a better shot to win games, but they just come out short in this one. We'll see how they respond next week, but I got pretty close. 23-21 was my prediction, and 23-20 was the actual score, with the Seahawks coming out on top. The next game I want to talk about was the Jaguars and 49ers. I got pretty close on this one too. My prediction was Jacksonville would win this game 24-21, and the actual score was 26-21. It was good to see that Brock Purdy is back out there. Not that Mac Jones did a bad job, but it's always good to get your starter back. Mac Jones, I thought, actually did pretty valiantly in Brock Purdy's absence. We'll see if Brock Purdy can stay healthy. And from what I understand, he had turf toe, and I know that can be something that lingers or comes back. Hopefully he can stay healthy. He had a pretty solid game yardage-wise for his return, 22-38 for 309 yards, 2 touchdowns, but also 2 interceptions, whereas Trevor Lawrence was 21 for 31 with 174 yards, not as many yards. He had 1 touchdown, but he didn't have any interceptions, so that's good. I don't think there was no fumbles. There was 2 fumbles lost. I mean, no fumbles for Jacksonville, but 2 fumbles lost for San Francisco, and turnovers are killers. San Francisco had a chance to win this game. I think the turnovers really hurt them, and as they often do. But rushing yards, Christian McCaffrey, so-so game, 17 carries, 49 yards. Not super productive, but definitely not as productive as Travis Etienne for the Jaguars, who had 19 carries for 124 yards and a touchdown. And then receptions, Christian McCaffrey, this is where he excelled in this game, was his receiving yards. He had 92 receiving yards on 6 catches and for a touchdown. The leading receiver for Jacksonville was Brian Thomas Jr. He had 5 receptions for 49 yards. Pretty close to what I predicted. 24-21 was what I thought the Jaguars would win by, but they won 26-21. Interesting to see this Jacksonville team, especially after the past few years. It just seems like they're up and down at times. They'll have a good year and then several bad years. I think they're actually going to be more formidable than many people, including myself, initially thought. I wasn't sure what to think about Liam Cohen, but he seems to be doing a great job. But yes, in this one, 26-21, Jacksonville comes out on top. Jacksonville has a big game next week on Monday night against Kansas City, who showed up this past week. I'll talk on that briefly. And then the San Francisco 49ers have a big game on Thursday night against the Rams, a divisional game. That should be a really good one. 2 3-1 teams going at it. A lot at stake at this time of the year. For now, division lead and just trying to get a leg up on everyone else in their division. So we'll see how that goes for the 49ers on Thursday. Moving on, we're going to talk about the Jets and the Dolphins. This was actually one of the Monday night games. I joked with my friend, he's a Dolphins fan, and I said, this seems like it would be a who cares game because both teams are towards the bottom of the league. Most likely neither of these teams, unless a miraculous turnaround happens, are going to make the playoffs. But I will say it seemed to be a decent game. Tyreek Hill suffered that really bad injury, and I would advise you, if you're squeamish, to not watch it because it was pretty brutal. It was bad. He's going to be out definitely the rest of this year. I'm not sure how long the rehab's going to take, but that looked painful. We hope he recovers quickly. Never like to see injury to any team, and that's going to be a big loss for Miami. I mean, Tyreek Hill, they don't make very many Tyreek Hills, and his speed, and a lot of sports, speed kills, and it's no different for football. Speed is an incredible weapon that a lot of teams utilize, and players who are dynamic and quick with the ball and able to separate from the defense to get into the open field. And Tyreek was one of the best, if not the best, at doing that. Once he got going, it was hard to catch him. So definitely unfortunate to see him get injured in that way. Prayers that, I know he was going into surgery today to fix ligaments that were torn and his knee was dislocated. So prayers that all went well. But yeah, it was a very gruesome injury and don't wish that on anyone. I do want to commend the Dolphins for being able to proceed through the game after something like that, and the Jets too, because it has an effect on both teams. To proceed through the game that way and then come out with the victory 27-21. My prediction was that the Dolphins would win 27-24, so pretty close. 27-21 was the actual score. The Jets, it just seems that there's a lot of issues there. I think Justin Fields gives them the best chance to win, but it just doesn't seem like things are clicking the way they need to. There was 3 fumbles by the Jets that, again, turnovers are going to kill you. And you just can't have them. And 3 fumbles definitely can cost you the game. I think there is still some growth needed for the New York Jets. In several of these games are close, like the game against Tampa Bay last week, where it looked like they could actually pull out a win, which would have been a quality win. But they allowed Baker Mayfield to drive down the field, and Chase McLaughlin was able to hit the game-winning field goal. The turnovers, the inability to sustain drives, it just hurts him. I still believe in Aaron Glenn. I think he'll get that organization turned around. but it's not overnight. It's going to take some time, and they're going to need the fans to be patient. There does need to be progress year in, year out, and even within the season, but it's not just an overnight solution when you're trying to turn a team around that has not performed well for years. I think the Jets have the longest playoff drought of any current team right now. And so to try to turn that ship around and build a team that's going to be competitive and be able to make the playoffs, it's going to take a year or two. To think that they're going straight from being towards the bottom of the league to competing for Super Bowls, that rarely ever happens. Going back to the game, Miami resilient, 27-21. Now they're 1-3. The Jets, unfortunately, are 0-4, and it looks like, I don't want to say their season is done because it's still only in the first quarter, but it's definitely not going well. Next, we're going to go to the sailed it segment. Sailed it is, if you think of a quarterback who sails a pass, it might be close-ish, but he maybe throws it just over the receiver's head and the receiver can't catch it. I got some aspects of the game right, but definitely not as close as in the nailed it section. The first one I want to start off with is the Dublin game between the Vikings and the Steelers. It was the first game in Dublin, Ireland, and since the 90s, I think. I predicted that Minnesota would win this game 30-23. I just thought after their drubbing of Cincinnati that there was hope in Minnesota, and Cincinnati is definitely hurting not having Joe Burrow there because they're a completely different team with Joe Burrow. But I still thought the Vikings, the way they played in that game, convinced me that they would be able to get a victory in this game. Well, that wasn't true because I predicted Minnesota would win 30-23, and the actual score was Pittsburgh winning 24-21. Carson Wentz was not without fault in this one. In the game where they won against Cincinnati, like 48-3, Carson Wentz threw it maybe 20 times. Well, in this game, he threw it 46. And if you remember last week, I said that if you're having Carson Wentz throw 30, 40 times, I think your chances of winning, the Minnesota Vikings' chances of winning, decrease because you're putting a lot more on his shoulders than he's capable of at this point in his career. You want Carson Wentz to be a game manager, someone that's not going to turn the ball over, someone that's going to put you in position to score, and let your playmakers like Jefferson and Addison make the plays. But that was not the case in this game. Carson Wentz threw for 350 yards, but he had 2 interceptions. He also had 2 touchdowns. So it wasn't the worst game, but interceptions always, they're tough. And so you never want to give the opposing team more chances than they already are going to get. And credit to the Pittsburgh Steelers for holding the Vikings to 21 points, especially after last week where they scored 48. They were able to get the win. They're 3-1, if you can believe. I believe they are now at the top of the AFC North. Who would have thought that in the beginning of the year? Aaron Rodgers did what he had to, 200 yards. Not what we're used to from Aaron Rodgers, especially not from his Green Bay days and MVP years where he was putting up stellar numbers. But I don't think the Steelers want him or are asking him to do that. They just want him to put the Steeler offense in positions to score points, to win games, and just not turn the ball over. Kenneth Gainwell, he had 19 carries for 99 yards, almost 100. 2 touchdowns, so that seems like your typical Steeler team. Run the ball and rely on your defense. DK Metcalf had 5 receptions for 126 yards and a touchdown. Definitely got that one wrong. It was close. I just picked wrong in who I thought was going to win. Minnesota 21, Pittsburgh 24, and my prediction was that Minnesota would win the game 30-23. The next game where it got close, but it was off more in the score-wise, because I did pick Philadelphia to win, was the Philadelphia Eagles versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I had predicted that Philadelphia would win 29-27. I thought that Tampa Bay would keep it close, and it really wasn't until the second half that Tampa Bay was able to do much offensively. When you get behind to this Eagles team, it's hard. It's hard to come back because they are a championship caliber team. They're the defending Super Bowl champions, and they just know how to win. Sometimes it doesn't look pretty. You look at Jalen Hurts' numbers, 130 yards, 15-24, 2 touchdowns. That doesn't sound stellar. That sounds like very mediocre numbers. But that's the thing about the Eagles. They can win in multiple ways. It means you're balanced. It means you're not relying on one player to do everything. And so, while Tampa Bay was able to make somewhat of a comeback in the second half, they couldn't complete it. The final score was 31-25. I thought it would be 29-27 with the Eagles winning. And it was 31-25. Baker Mayfield had 289 yards, 2 touchdowns. He did have a costly interception. I think this is where he was getting hot, and he thought he could make all the throws at that point. It just was not a good decision on his part, and it ended up being an interception. Bucky Irving had a pretty stellar game, 15 carries for 63 yards, but he was able to haul in 5 receptions for 102 yards and a touchdown. So he had a good game. As for the Eagles, Jalen Hurts led the team in rushing with 9 carries and 62 yards. Dallas Goedert had 4 receptions for 37 yards and 2 touchdowns, so a really good game for him. One of the things I wanted to point out about this game is everybody gives the Eagles a hard time about the tush push. It was really cool to see them pretend like they were going to do this tush, and they handed it to Saquon for the end around, and he walks into the end zone for a touchdown. It shows that they can win in multiple ways, which is the DNA of a championship team, which they definitely are. I think they're going to be hard to knock off. It should be interesting to see who challenges them. The Lions look really good. I think they could challenge them, but you just have that DNA in the Philadelphia Eagles where they can show you we can win in whatever way we need to. They've won 20 of the last 21 games, including playoffs and the Super Bowl. That's the DNA of a championship team, and they've proven that. And until someone knocks them off, I think they're the favorites. Even when it doesn't look fancy or flashy, and you're like, well, 130 yards, that's not very much. Who cares? They got the W. They did what they had to win. Kudos to the Eagles. The last game in this segment is the Colts and the Rams. I thought I got pretty close on this one. I thought it would be higher scoring than what it was. I think the Colts are for real. I don't think they're a pretender. I think Daniel Jones, just like Baker Mayfield in Tampa, I think Daniel Jones has found a rebirth in Indianapolis, and he's doing well. I know in this game he had 2 turnovers and formed 2 interceptions. But to see him playing at a much higher level than I remember him ever playing in New York, it's just good to see. I think the Colts show that they're for real. I think they're the favorites to win the AFC North with how much some of the other teams are struggling, especially the Texans. They don't look like they did 2 years ago. The Titans, they're in full rebuild mode, and they still have a few years before we even consider talking about them in any Super Bowl context. I think their biggest threat is probably the Jaguars, who are looking better than I initially expected. I didn't know what to expect from Liam Cohen, but he's doing a good job there. No loss is good, but I think they at least show that when you play us, you better be ready, because we're going to give you a run for your money at the very least. Jonathan Taylor had 17 carries, 76 yards. Adonai Mitchell had 3 receptions for 96 yards. He did have that bonehead move where he celebrated too early and the ball slipped, and instead of it being a touchdown, it ended up being a touchback. And so, young player, it's only his 2nd year, and things like that you just got to learn. You can't do. You got to just score the touchdown. He'll learn from this. As for the Rams, Matthew Stafford had 375 yards with 3 touchdowns. Kyron Williams, 13 carries for 77 yards. And who might be emerging as the best receiver in the NFL right now, Puka Nacua. He had 13 receptions for 170 yards and a touchdown, and it was just phenomenal. He's having a phenomenal year. And watch out, man. Puka Nacua is lighting it up, and he's proven to be a valuable weapon to Matthew Stafford and that Rams offense. It'll be interesting to see on Thursday how they do against the 49ers, that divisional game. Those games almost always tend to be close and a battle. So it should be a good game between 2 teams that are often vying for the NFC West division title, if you will. But both of them are 3-1, so we'll see how they do. I do know that San Francisco is still missing some key pieces in George Kittle and Brandon Ayuk, who I don't think they're supposed to come back to at least week 6. But Kyle Shanahan is one of the best coaches in the league, as is Sean McVay. It should be a fun game to watch. But the final score in this was 27-20. My prediction was going to be 31-27, the Rams winning. So I predicted the correct winner, but definitely not the right amount of points. And so now we move to the failed it. This is where I just got it completely wrong. I had to start with the Chargers and the Giants because there is no way on God's green earth that I thought the Giants would beat the Chargers. Yet here we are. The final score was 21-18. The Giants came out on top. I predicted the Chargers would win 24-17. And I thought maybe even that the Chargers could win by more because they've been playing really well. Justin Herbert has been playing really well. The New York Giant defense, I don't think gets enough love because they were on Justin Herbert like crazy. That was one of the reasons they were able to win this game. It just had so much pressure on Herbert. And he had 2 turnovers, like 2 interceptions. Did he have a fumble too? No fumbles. I thought maybe had a fumble, but he did have 2 interceptions. He was under constant pressure the whole game. I know the loss of Joe Alt had a lot to do with that. They also have another offensive lineman. His name escapes me right now, but he's out. So you have some integral pieces to the offensive line that are missing. I definitely think that played a part in Justin Herbert being under constant pressure. I think they'll be so happy to get Joe Alt back because he's the anchor of that offensive line. But you could see, man, if he gets injured again, the Chargers might be in trouble. The way you really negate pressure is the quick passes, right? Screens and passes to your running back, quick slants. He may have to do that, and he has a perfect receiver in Ladd McConkey for that, where he can do screens and then a good run game, which Omari and Hampton was a huge bright spot for them. He had 12 carries for 128 yards and a touchdown. So you can hand it off. You can really establish the run game, which I know Jim Harbaugh likes to do. And then you can do the short passing game. It's what the Chiefs had to do when our offensive line was being shuffled last year. And so Justin Herbert may have to do that until Joe Alt comes back. Quentin Johnson has stepped up his game. He had 98 yards on 8 receptions and a touchdown. You can use him in those quick slants. I think until Joe Alt comes back, they may have to revert to that style of play, heavy run, quick passes, and just rely on your defense because I do think the Chargers have a really good defense, and because of that, they'll be able to stay in games. It's just, can their offense do enough to A, get the lead, and then B, hold it when they have it? I did not see the Giants winning this game, but lo and behold, here we are. I thought the Chargers would win 24-17, and the Giants ended up winning 21-18. So kudos to them. Kudos on Jackson Dart, who was 13-20, 111 yards and a touchdown. Again, not spectacular numbers. In fact, very pedestrian numbers, but he did what he had to win the game, and he has instilled this sense of energy in the New York Giant offense. I think people are excited to have him there. And we'll see him and Cameron Scatterbo. When he played against the Chiefs, I was like, man, he was another one. I was like, the Chiefs could have picked this guy up. He's a bruiser running back. He'll run you over. He had 25 carries for 79 yards. And Darius Slayton had 3 receptions for 44 yards. They did just enough to win the game. Again, would this have been different if Joe Alt was injured and their offensive line was healthy? Possibly. But all teams deal with injuries. I'm sure Jim Harbaugh will come up with a plan to win games until they get Joe Alt back. This was definitely not what I expected. The Panthers and the Patriots, I predicted the Patriots would win 24-21. And it was a lot uglier than that. The Patriots ended up winning 42-13. Panthers seem to be Heckle and Jai type of team where one week they'll look spectacular. Then the next week they'll look like trash. And so this was their week to look like trash, apparently, because they gave up 42 points. Not to sound mean or anything, but it's not like the Patriots are an offensive powerhouse. So for the Patriots to score 42 points, the Panthers defense must have not played well at all. I wasn't able to watch this game, but it just doesn't seem like it went well for the Panthers in any aspect of the game. Bryce Young was 18 for 30 for 150 yards. He did have a touchdown. Hubbard had 10 carries for 49 yards. And then McMillan had 4 receptions for 62 yards. Drake May had 203 yards, 2 touchdowns, 14 to 17, so they didn't require him to throw very much. Ramondre Stevenson had 9 carries for 38 yards, and Stephon Diggs had 6 receptions for 101 yards. It's such a Jekyll and Hyde team in the Panthers because last week they won 30-0 against the Falcons. I didn't see that coming. And so I thought, well, maybe here they are. They're going to find their groove and they're going to start winning some games. And now this week they play the Patriots and they just get demolished. So we'll see what version of the Panthers we get next week. But kudos to the Patriots for being able to have a really good game. 42-13. That's a good win, especially over a team that was coming off a high of holding a divisional opponent to a shutout, putting up 30 on them, and then coming into this game on a high to be able to stymie them in this way. Yeah, I definitely got this one wrong. I thought 24-21 would be the final with the Patriots coming out on top, so I did think the Patriots would win, but not 42-13. Next game was another blowout. It was the Titans and Texans, and my prediction was 28-20. And I thought maybe because it's a divisional game, it'll be close-ish. 20 and winning by 8 points is a pretty convincing victory, but no, yeah, Houston won 26-0. That was the actual score. Tennessee didn't put up any points. The second week in a row where we've had a shutout. I think last week's was more surprising because it was the Falcons, and I didn't expect the Falcons to not score any points whatsoever. The Titans, I understand a little bit because rookie quarterback, they're in full rebuild mode. I want to say they're going to go winless, but I think the possibility is there. But Houston, they're only leading 6-0 going into the half. And so it wasn't like they were blowing the Titans out the entire game. It wasn't until really the fourth quarter where they put up 20 points that it got out of hand. But there's definitely lots of work to do on both sides. Cameron Ward, he was only 10 for 26, 108 yards and an interception. Seemed like he was under constant pressure, though, and in times where he did have some protection, he held the ball too long. Tony Pollard for 14 carries, 64 yards. As for the Houston Texans, CJ Stroud had a pretty good, efficient game, 22-28, 233 yards, 2 touchdowns. Quavius Marks had 17 carries for 69 yards and a touchdown, and Nico Collins had 4 receptions for 79 yards. I wonder with the Texans, if they find their groove, if they'll be able to sustain it and look like the team we saw 2 years ago. Because if so, then they'll definitely be a competitor A in the AFC South and just in the AFC overall. But it'll be interesting to see if they're able to do that and be able to catch up to the Jaguars and the Colts. That might be hard, so they might be striving to be a wild card team by the time it's all said and done. But I think if they can find their groove and get it together, they have the talent to really compete. We'll see if that happens. I definitely did not see a 26-0 happen. I thought it would be closer just because it was a divisional game, and those tend to be closer than 26-0. I did want to do some honorable mentions, and this one I was so happy to be wrong about. Based off of all of last year and the past few games this year, I was doubting if the Chiefs could put up more than 30 points since they've been struggling to put up just barely over 20 points. And so I had predicted that the Ravens would go into Kansas City and win 30-23. That was not the case. Kansas City looked sharp. It seems like Xavier Worthy was definitely missed and was a key part of their offense. Like they say, speed kills, and he definitely has that. Kansas City was able to use him and take advantage of Baltimore's depleted defense, and they won 37-20. And it really wasn't that close. One of those touchdowns for Baltimore was in garbage time. Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes, 270 yards from 25 or 37 passing and 4 touchdowns. Hasn't happened since October 2023 for him, 4 touchdown game. Xavier Worthy had the most rushing yards with 38 on 2 carries, and also the most receptions for 5 receptions for 83 yards. But Patrick Mahomes got a lot of people involved. It was awesome to see him have that confidence that seems to be lacking for past year or so. And it also seemed to be nice to see his offensive line hold up and play pretty well. Now, I know it was against the Ravens defense that has been depleted and missing some key pieces. I'm a little bit concerned about the Ravens. 1-3, that's a tough place to be. And I think the only thing that is hopeful is that they play in the AFC North, where like the Bengals, or they're missing Joe Burrow until at least mid-December. The Browns are the Browns, and I would be surprised if they're competing for a playoff spot. The Steelers lead the division right now, but they don't seem like an invincible foe that can't be overcome. So if Lamar Jackson and the Ravens can turn things around, I think they give themselves a shot to win the division still, or at least make the playoffs in the wild card spot. They have the talent. They have one of the best quarterbacks in the league. They just got to start putting together some wins, one win at a time. That defense is in dire need of some help. We'll see if they make a move to bolster it a little bit. At this point, I don't know what they do defensively, and I don't know if they're just going to have to try to outscore the other teams. There needs to be some changes to get back on track, because this is definitely not the Baltimore Ravens team we have grown accustomed to seeing in the past few years. They look like a shell of their former selves. But pleasantly, I'm glad to be wrong on this one. And my Chiefs were able to pull out a win and get to 500. 37-20 was the final. My prediction was that Baltimore would win 30-23. Again, glad to be wrong. Last game I want to talk about is the Packers versus the Cowboys. I predicted that the Packers would put up 40 points, and guess what? They did. However, I did not predict that the Dallas Cowboys would also put up 40 points, which they did. Now, I will say this. The NFL needs to get rid of the tie. No NFL game should result in a tie. I think that's stupid. And the fact that it feels like it's incomplete, right? Almost like you're watching a TV show and you have to wait till next season because they leave you on a cliffhanger. You're not guaranteed a next season with this game. There's no guarantee the Packers and the Cowboys are going to meet again in the playoffs. A tie is so stupid. It's beyond me that it is still a possibility in the NFL for a game to end in a tie. One argument is that they need to go back to the previous overtime system where if you score a touchdown, you win the game. If you kick a field goal, the other team gets a chance. I don't like that. Those are stupid rules. That's dumb. I think one of the things I thought, especially if you're worried or concerned about player wear and tear and you don't want them continuously playing, one of the suggestions that I heard proposed was do a field goal kickoff start at the 35-yard line. Each kicker from each team gets a chance to kick the field goal, and if they make it, then move it 5 yards back. And they do that, and they continue until one of the kickers misses. The other thing is change it to the college format. You have one overtime where both teams score and kick the extra point. Then the second overtime, if they both score, they have to go for 2. And after that, it's just 2-point conversion attempts. They just have to do something different. Games cannot end in ties. That is ridiculous. The NFL should be ashamed of itself that this is still something that happens 40-40. And you're letting your fans down by doing that. Kudos to the Cowboys, because there was no way I thought they would keep up with the Packers. but they came in with a solid game plan and were able to go toe-to-toe with the Green Bay Packers. If a tie can be a win for any team, I would say that the Cowboys should feel good about tying with the Green Bay Packers. Micah Parsons, one of the best defensive players in the league, went to the Packers in a trade. Had he wrecked their game plan and Green Bay wins by what I thought they would win, 40-28, then I think, yeah, it'll be a lot of soul searching for the Dallas Cowboys and their organization and their fans. To go toe-to-toe and have it be 40-40 was more of a win for the Cowboys than for the Packers, but it was a loss for the fans because, again, the game ended in a tie, and that should never be the case. Jordan Love, 31-43 for 337 yards and 3 touchdowns. He's proven to be a really good quarterback. Green Bay, you guys have had just been rich in quarterbacks. Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, and now Jordan Love, and he seems like a really good franchise quarterback for you guys for years to come. Josh Jacobs, love him. 22 carries, 86 yards, 2 touchdowns. Just so nice to have a run game like that you can rely upon. And also, he did well out of the backfield receiving, 4 receptions for 71 yards. So awesome when you have a running back that can do that for you. Dak Prescott, 31-40 for 319 yards and 3 touchdowns. He had another fantastic game, playing at a high level, keeping these Cowboys in these games. Javonte Williams, 20 carries, 85 yards. Keep an eye out for this guy because I think he's going to be special. I think he's going to be a really good running back for them for years to come, as it seems like he's really done well for them and is able to carry the load on the ground. Javonte Williams, a good game for him. And George Pickens stepped up. I wasn't sure if he would or not, and he proved me and other critics wrong. 8 receptions, 134 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He showed flashes of what he was like when he was in Georgia, at the University of Georgia. And so kudos to him. I'm glad he was able to, on a national stage, show that he is highly talented and that he still got it. So great. It was an exciting game. It's just sad that it ended in a tie. I hope the NFL gets rid of the tie. There should be a definitive winner, because if not, everybody loses, including the fans, and we don't want that. But there we go, my friends. That is my recap for week 4. Nailed it, sailed it, failed it segment. I appreciate you joining me and letting me give my thoughts. I'm no expert, just a big fan of football and sports, and I hope that you enjoy my takes and that you just enjoy the different segments. And again, I appreciate the support very much. It means the world to me. Above all else, though, I hope you know that Jesus loves you, that he adores you, and if you don't know him, he can't wait to get to know you, and he's ready and waiting. Know that in these dark days that we live in, he is the light that shines out, and he's the hope that we can cling to. He is our rock, which we can stand upon. And so if you don't know him, and if you're searching for hope, I would say turn to Jesus. He is the best thing that will ever happen to you. If you're looking for hope, look up and look into the Word, because the Bible is a beautiful picture, a beautiful telling of God's love story to us. Despite the depravity of the human heart, God stuck to his redemption plan and sent Jesus to pay our price. Now we can have a relationship with him, communing with him, and walking every day out with him. Not that there won't be challenges, not that life won't get hard, but you will always have him by your side. So if you don't know him, get to know Jesus. He's waiting. Until next time, thank you so much. God bless you. Have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you again soon.